She escaped slavery once. Then she went back 13 times. Each trip back put her own freedom and her own life at direct risk. There was a substantial bounty on her capture. She could have stayed safely in the north after her first escape. Almost anyone would have. Instead, over 8 years, she personally guided approximately 70 people out of slavery. A long route she navigated mostly at night, using knowledge she built herself, trip after trip. She later said something that became her own measure of that work, that in 8 years, she never lost a single passenger. Today, we're looking at Harriet Tubman and 4 lessons from a woman who had every reason to stop after her own freedom was won and chose to keep going anyway. Harriet Tubman was born into slavery around 1822 in Maryland. As a teenager, she suffered a severe head injury when an overseer struck her, an injury that caused lifelong seizures and pain for the rest of her life. In 1849, fearing she was about to be sold away from her family, she escaped alone, traveling roughly 90 miles north to freedom in Pennsylvania, mostly on foot, mostly at night. She later described that first taste of freedom as a kind of glory she'd never experienced. But she also said something that surprised people who expected her to simply be grateful and move on. She said she was alone, and that her family and friends were still in bondage, and that she resolved to go back and bring them out. Over the next 8 years, she did exactly that. 13 separate missions back into slave territory, navigating by the North Star and a network of safe houses, guiding her family and dozens of others north. She became known by a nickname during this period, Moses, for leading her people out of bondage the way the biblical figure led the Israelites out of Egypt. Here's the first thing Harriet Tubman's life teaches us. I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of 2 things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. Harriet Tubman, as recorded in Sarah Bradford's 1869 biography, read the clarity in that. Not liberty or comfort, not liberty or safety, liberty or death. She'd already decided, before her first step north, exactly what she was willing to risk. Most of us never face a decision with stakes anywhere close to that. But most of us do face smaller versions of the same question. Is this thing I want worth the risk of pursuing it? Or will I stay where it's safe and comfortable instead? Tubman's clarity came from necessity, not luxury. But the principle underneath it still applies broadly. Half-hearted risk rarely gets you anywhere. Total clarity about what you're willing to risk and why is often what actually moves you forward. What are you treating as optional that you've secretly already decided is worth everything to you? This is the part of Tubman's story that I think gets undersold the most. She won her own freedom in 1849. That could have been the end of her story. Nobody would have blamed her for building a quiet life in the north and never looking back. She went back, not once, 13 times, over 8 years, each trip carrying real risk of capture, imprisonment, or worse. This wasn't recklessness. She was careful, strategic, and disciplined about it, which is exactly why she succeeded every time. But it was still a repeated, deliberate choice to risk what she'd already won, for the sake of people who hadn't gotten there yet. Most of us, once we've achieved something hard-won, financial stability, a hard-earned skill, freedom from a difficult situation, quietly stop thinking about the people still where we used to be. Tubman's answer to that instinct was to keep going back. Not because it was easy, but because she remembered exactly what it was like to still be there. Who's still where you used to be, that you might be positioned to go back for? Harriet Tubman's success wasn't just courage, it was expertise, built trip by trip, over years. She learned the terrain. She learned which farms had sympathetic families willing to hide people overnight. She learned travel by the stars, to time her trips around seasons and weather, to read danger before it arrived. None of that knowledge existed in a book she could study beforehand. She built it herself, through 13 increasingly dangerous trips, refining her methods each time based on what she'd learned from the last one. By the time of her later trips, she had a level of expertise in this specific, dangerous work that essentially nobody else alive possessed. That expertise is a huge part of why she never lost a single passenger across 8 years of operations. Most meaningful work rewards exactly this kind of accumulated hard-won expertise, knowledge that can't be shortcut, only built one careful attempt at a time. What are you getting better at? One repetition at a time that almost nobody else is willing to put in the reps for. When the Civil War began, Tubman's specific mission, guiding people out of slavery one small group at a time, was no longer the only way to help. So, she adapted. She served the Union Army as a nurse, a cook, and eventually a scout and spy, using the same skills in reading terrain and moving undetected that she'd built on the Underground Railroad. In 1863, she helped lead an armed raid along the Combahee River that freed more than 700 enslaved people in a single night, becoming the first woman in American history to lead an armed military expedition. After the war, she spent her later years still serving, caring for family, supporting formerly enslaved people who had nowhere else to go, and eventually advocating publicly for women's right to vote. Her mission kept evolving. What never changed was her willingness to keep showing up for it, in whatever form it required next. Harriet Tubman died in 1913, having spent most of her adult life in some form of service to others, first through the Underground Railroad, then through the Civil War, then through decades of quieter community and advocacy work afterward. She's remembered today mostly for those 13 trips back into danger, but the full shape of her life shows something bigger than any single mission. 4 lessons. Know exactly what you're willing to risk everything for. Go back for the people still where you used to be. Master what almost nobody else is willing to put in the work to learn. And keep serving, even after the mission in front of you changes shape. She never treated her own freedom as the finish line. She treated it as the starting point for everything that came after. If this resonated with you, subscribe. We do this every week. I'll see you in the next one.